When she opened the door in a silk robe and said my name like a secret, the night felt suddenly too warm for October. Rain stitched silver lines through the porch light, and the warmth from inside slid across my skin like a hand. I told myself to keep it simple. Drop off the weekend bag, wave, leave. But my feet crossed the threshold as if they had always belonged to that welcome mat. I am Emily, 26, historically careful. I collect lists, color code calendars, and pretend that tidy columns can hold back weather. Hannah has been my best friend since high school. I know the creak of her mother's stairs, the scrape of the mailbox lid, the way vanilla and lemon live in the kitchen air. I also thought I knew her mother, Claire, in the safe, framed way we know the adults from our childhood. Kind eyes at winter concerts, warm rides home after late shifts, a voice that could smooth the air in a room simply by speaking. I did not know the version of her who would turn and catch the porch light in her hair, who would look at me long enough to make the wet hem of my jeans feel suddenly important. Inside, the house carried its usual hush, the kind good houses keep for their people. Lamps glowed low, shadows lay neatly. A piano rested in the corner like an old dog that still knows the tricks. Claire moved through the kitchen with the ease of a ritual. The kettle whispered. A honey spoon tapped porcelain. I watched her hands and felt a small current jump under my skin. She set a cup in front of me and the steam found my face. Our fingers touched for an instant longer than the accident it could have been. I retreated. She did not. She let the moment exist in the soft light between us, and I felt something rearrange, like furniture shifting just out of sight. It had not begun that night, not really. It had been weeks of noticing and refusing to name it, her eyes resting on me when I laughed, my breath catching when she pushed a stray line of hair behind her ear. I told myself it was admiration, a crush on competence and kindness. Then Hannah said her mother had been lonely lately, and that word, lonely, stood up inside me like a person and turned toward the door. Saturday arrived smelling like green apples and wet paper. We walked the outdoor market beneath a sky the color of a clean plate. Umbrellas knocked shoulders and made us both laugh in a careful, unclaimed way. She told me to choose the flowers and I reached for peonies still closed into themselves. She watched me in that steady way of hers, as if she already understood that I liked the ache before the bloom. At the tea stand, she bought one cup and set it between our palms. Our fingers fitted around the cardboard without negotiation. Heat meeting heat, and something unclenched in my chest in a way that felt both new and like a memory I had lost for a while. On the walk back, the wind pushed us closer, and the street performed its usual tricks. A car hissed through a puddle. We jumped the same direction and landed under my umbrella, chest to chest, breath to breath. The rain ticked around us as if counting, as if giving permission for silence to say the things words would make too loud. We stepped apart before the quiet broke. The line we didn't cross glimmered between us like a filament and followed us home. That night we chose a black and white film where lovers speak like poems and touch like confessions. A blanket covered both our knees. Halfway through, she reached for the remote and her knuckles grazed my hand. It was such a small place on the map of a person, that narrow bridge of bone and skin, and yet my whole body leaned toward it as if a tide had just shifted. She stayed facing the screen, and I felt her awareness meet mine in the space we were pretending was just air. I knew then that my tidy columns could not hold back this kind of weather. The room softened at the edges, and I understood that caution is sometimes only another name for fear. Later, when the credits drifted up the screen like lanterns, she stood and offered her hand. I took it. The stairs were a geography of yes, each creak a small pledge. Her bedroom glowed with a single lamp, the window humming with rain. She waited inches away, not touching me, asking without speaking. I surprised myself with the steadiness of my answer, which was also a step, which was also a surrender. She loosened the tie of her robe and let it slip the way breath leaves a held note. The light made a soft shore on her skin. I moved toward her until pretending we were not shaking became less honest than admitting we were. The rest was a conversation made of touch and breath. She learned me like a page she had saved for years and finally let herself read. I learned her like a room I had walked through 100 times and only just turned on the lamp to see. Nothing was hurried. Hunger behaved itself without becoming less true. The lamp became the only star. The rain thinned to thread. Somewhere, a pipe clicked a small benediction. She laughed once, low and surprised, and I kissed the laugh from her throat and felt her answer everywhere a person can feel anything at all. When stillness finally arrived, it did so with the weightless density of clouds, and I understood how a ceiling can come closer, simply because your life has. Sunlight puddled on the sheets like warm milk in the morning. Claire lay on her side, hair scattered across the pillow, studying my face as if it were a language she had decided she wanted to speak. She asked the kind of question you only ask when you care about the answer, and I gave her the kind of answer you can live in. We stayed there too long and then not long enough, talking the way people talk after they have traded maps and discovered their countries fit along the same border. Coffee tasted different. Toast felt ceremonial. I sent a message I had owed my life for a while. We need to talk, and turned the phone face down so it could practice silence. I met Hannah at the river because difficult words travel better in open air. The wind made the water restless and our hair ungraceful. I told her the truth because anything else would rot. She held herself the way people do when they are keeping their heart from falling out of their ribs. She said she was angry and might be for a while. I said I deserved that and that I was still, complicatedly, guiltily, happy. She did not scream. That almost hurt more. She said she needed time and left with her jaw set in the line I recognized from every team tryout she had ever walked into. Time went abstract after that. Days became work and small, brave choices. Nights became the soft sound of rain whether or not the weather cooperated. Claire and I made rules so the truth would not thin itself into something dishonest. We would be gentle. We would be plain. We would not hide if a moment asked us to come into the light. We cooked in the same kitchen where I had once been loud with friends, and now our elbows learned each other's choreography around knives and steam. Some evenings we did nothing admirable at all, just lay on the living room rug with records turning slow, my head on her stomach, her fingers combing idly through my hair. It felt like recovery. It felt like risk. It felt, startlingly, like home. Weeks later, a note slid under my apartment door in handwriting I could recognize by sound. Coffee? I walked to the cafe carrying my stomach in my mouth. Hannah's eyes were red but clear. She asked whether I was happy, and I told her the most accurate version of the truth. It hurt, and it was complicated, and yes. The yes did not cancel the hurt. It put a hand on its shoulder. She looked down for a long time and then up, and the word she gave me cost her something. She told me to be careful with Claire and with her, and that we were still us, even if it took effort to remember how to be. Spring remembered itself. In Claire's tiny garden, string lights woke at dusk like hopeful thoughts after a long winter. She stood at the end of the stone path in a simple dress with her hands in her pockets, smiling as if the ground had just returned a lost secret. I told her the river had been hard but not impossible. She said we would earn whatever needed earning and follow my lead. I walked into her arms and placed my cheek where it already knew the shape of her shoulder. She leaned back to study my face and admitted that she had been brave in the wrong directions for a long time, that this felt like courage finally facing the right door. I told her I used to think goodness meant smallness, and that now I suspected goodness might be honesty with a little recklessness tied to its wrist. She laughed, the sound that lives under her words, and kissed me under the lights. It was not a storm's kiss. It was the kind that holds a steady promise. We will learn how to live by this fire without burning down what we love. Even good promises need patience. Some nights I still wake at 3 with my mind arranging imaginary chairs for meetings that will never happen. Now, when I pad to the kitchen in bare feet, she is already there as if the house has learned our habits and likes them. 2 cups steam between us like a small blessing. We stand close without remembering to decide to stand close. We talk about anything. We talk about nothing. When I go back to bed, the dark feels less like an ocean and more like a room with the right lamp on. If you had asked me a year earlier to draw my future, I would have given you a straight line in a neat notebook and called it wisdom. I would have mistaken predictability for peace. Then a rainy night asked me a better question. A door opened. Someone said my name like it mattered. The line folded into a map, and I realized I wanted to follow it, even if some roads had no signs. This is what I know now. Forbidden is a word that lives on paper until you press your life into it. Courage is not loud. It is a quiet decision repeated in kitchens and gardens and at riverside tables with people you refuse to lose. Love does not ask you to vanish into your own good behavior. It asks you to tell the truth and then try to deserve it. If I had to choose again, I would still step over that threshold into the warm, quiet house, into the careful hands that learned me by heart, into the life that makes my pulse sound like rain on a soft roof. Steady, certain, mine.